Have you ever woken up in the morning, swung your legs out of bed, and felt that all too familiar stiffness in your knees or a sharp, nagging twinge in your lower back? You might pause for a moment, sitting on the edge of the mattress, trying to muster the energy to start the day, wondering why your body feels so much older than you actually are. It is incredibly frustrating, especially when you feel like you are doing everything right. You take your walks, you try to stay active, and most importantly, you watch what you eat. You have likely cut down on the sweets, said no to the fried foods, and filled your plate with wholesome, natural ingredients. You are eating your vegetables, just like we have all been told to do since we were children. But what if I told you that some of those very vegetables, the ones sitting in your crisping drawer right now, the ones you think are healing you, might actually be the secret culprits behind that stubborn joint pain and inflammation? It sounds almost counterintuitive, doesn't it? We have spent decades believing that vegetable equals healthy. End of story. But as we enter our 60s and beyond, our bodies change. The way we process food changes, and our tolerance for certain chemical compounds found in nature shifts. For many of us, the very foods meant to nourish us can turn into silent agitators, sparking a fire of inflammation in our joints that just won't die down, no matter how much medication we take or how much rest we get. In this conversation, we are going to turn conventional wisdom on its head just a little bit. We are going to explore 4 specific vegetables that are widely considered healthy, but can be absolute nightmares for seniors suffering from arthritis, stiffness, or chronic inflammation. We are going to look at why this happens, the science behind it, and most importantly, simple, delicious swaps you can make so you don't have to sacrifice flavor to get your mobility back. By the end of this series, you will have a clear roadmap to testing these triggers in your own diet, potentially unlocking a level of comfort and energy you haven't felt in years. Before we dive into the first vegetable, I want you to understand why this matters so much more now than it did when you were 30 or 40. Inflammation is technically a good thing. It's your body's way of fighting off infection or healing an injury. But there is a difference between the good kind of inflammation, like the redness around a cut that heals in a few days, and chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is like a low-level fire simmering inside your body. It attacks your tissues, wears down your cartilage, and leaves you feeling foggy and achy. As we age, our immune system becomes a bit more sensitive, sometimes reacting to things it used to ignore. That is where food comes in. If you're feeding that fire 3 times a day with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're never giving your joints a chance to cool down and recover. So, let's get right into it with the first vegetable on our list. And I have to warn you, this one might break your heart a little bit because it is a staple in almost everyone's kitchen. We're talking about tomatoes. I know. Tomatoes are the base of so many comfort foods, a rich marinara sauce on Sunday, a fresh slice on a sandwich, or a bright, colorful salad. We think of them as bursting with antioxidants, specifically lycopene, which is indeed good for your heart. But here's the other side of the coin that rarely gets talked about in the mainstream. Tomatoes belong to a family of plants called nightshades. Now, nightshades might sound like something out of a fairy tale, but in the botanical world, it refers to the Solanaceae family. These plants produce a natural chemical compound called solanine. In nature, solanine acts as a defense mechanism for the plant to ward off insects and pests. It is a mild toxin. When we were younger and our digestive systems were firing on all cylinders, we could handle solanine without blinking an eye. Our gut lining was strong, and our bodies filtered it out efficiently. But as we cross that 60-year mark, our gut lining can become a little more permeable, a condition sometimes called leaky gut. When this happens, compounds like solanine can slip into the bloodstream where they don't belong. When solanine enters the system of someone who is sensitive to it, the body flags it as an invader. The immune system launches an attack, and the result is inflammation.
For many seniors, this manifests directly in the joints. There have been countless stories of people suffering from debilitating arthritis who, upon cutting tomatoes out of their diet for just 2 weeks, found their pain dropping significantly. It isn't that tomatoes are inherently evil, but for a body already battling inflammation, they can be like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Think about how often you consume tomatoes. It's not just the whole vegetable. It's the ketchup, the salsa, the barbecue sauce, the soup, and the stew. If you are eating these things daily, you are maintaining a constant low-level intake of solanine. You might notice that your knees feel hotter or stiffer the morning after a big Italian dinner. That isn't a coincidence. That is a biological reaction. The buildup of these alkaloids in the tissues can irritate the soft tissue around the joint, leading to that grinding, aching sensation that makes walking down the stairs feel like climbing a mountain. You might be thinking, but I love my pasta sauce. What am I supposed to do? The good news is that you don't have to live on plain rice and boiled chicken. It's all about finding alternatives that give you that savory satisfaction without the inflammatory kick. For example, many people find relief by switching to sauces based on roasted red peppers, though we will talk about peppers in a moment, or using pesto, which is packed with anti-inflammatory basil and olive oil. Even simpler, try swapping your tomato-based sauces for olive oil and garlic dressings, or creamy sauces made from cauliflower or squash. The goal here isn't to make you fear food. It is to empower you to be a detective in your own body. If you have been suffering from unexplained joint pain, tomatoes are the #1 suspect I would recommend placing under house arrest for a few weeks. Eliminate them completely. Check your labels, skip the ketchup, and just see how you wake up in the morning. If that stiffness starts to fade, you have your answer. And believe me, the relief of moving pain-free is worth infinitely more than a slice of tomato on a burger. But tomatoes are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the nightshade family. And the next vegetable we need to discuss is one that is often celebrated as the ultimate comfort food. Yet it carries a double whammy of risks for your joints. We're talking, of course, about white potatoes. Now, I can almost hear the collective sigh of disappointment. Potatoes are the ultimate comfort food for so many of us. Whether it's a heaping scoop of mashed potatoes at holiday dinners, a baked potato loaded with sour cream, or even just a side of fries when you're out for a quick lunch, they're everywhere. And for the longest time, we viewed them as a harmless, starchy staple. But for seniors dealing with joint pain, white potatoes present a unique challenge because they hit your body with 2 different inflammatory punches at the same time. First, just like tomatoes, white potatoes are part of that nightshade family. They contain solanine, particularly in the skin and just underneath it. If you have ever seen a potato with a slight green tint to it, that is a visual warning sign of high solanine concentration. Even without the green tint, for a sensitive system, the regular consumption of white potatoes keeps that immune response active, keeping your joints in a state of low-grade irritation. But the second punch is arguably even more impactful for those of us over 60, the glycemic index. White potatoes are simple carbohydrates that break down into sugar very quickly in your bloodstream. When you eat a large serving of mashed potatoes, your blood sugar spikes rapidly. In response, your body floods your system with insulin to manage that sugar. Here's the catch. High levels of insulin and blood sugar are pro-inflammatory. They trigger a cascade of chemical reactions that tell your body to produce inflammatory cytokines. So you have the solanine irritating the gut and the joints directly, and then you have the blood sugar spike creating systemic inflammation throughout the entire body. It's a perfect storm for pain. This is often why you might feel heavy, lethargic, and stiffer an hour or 2 after a meal heavy in potatoes. It's not just food coma, it's an inflammatory response. But don't worry, you don't have to give up that texture and comfort. The best swap here is the sweet potato.
Despite the name, sweet potatoes, especially the orange ones, have a lower glycemic load and are packed with beta-carotene, which actually fights inflammation. They're not nightshades, they're from a completely different botanical family called morning glories. Mashed sweet potato with a little cinnamon and butter is delicious and kind to your knees. Another fantastic option is mashed cauliflower. I know it sounds trendy, but when steamed and blended with garlic and a little olive oil, the texture is incredibly similar to mashed potatoes, but it's cruciferous, meaning it helps your liver detoxify the body rather than adding to the toxic load. Now, let's move down the produce aisle to our third vegetable. This one is beautiful, dark purple, and often used as a meat substitute in vegetarian dishes, the eggplant. Eggplant is a vegetable that people tend to either love or hate, but if you love it, perhaps in an eggplant parmesan or roasted vegetable medley, you need to be aware of what it's doing to your system. Eggplant is arguably one of the most potent nightshades when it comes to the concentration of those alkaloids we discussed earlier. But the issue with eggplant goes beyond just the nightshade connection. Think about the texture of an eggplant when it's raw. It's like a sponge, right? And what do we do when we cook it? We usually fry it or roast it in oil. Because of that sponge-like structure, eggplant soaks up an incredible amount of cooking fat. If you're ordering this at a restaurant, it's likely soaking up low-quality vegetable oils like soybean or canola oil, which are high in omega-6 fatty acids. While we need some omega-6, the modern diet has way too much of it, and an excess of omega-6 drives inflammation aggressively. So with eggplant, you are getting the solanine toxin that irritates the joints, paired with a delivery system of inflammatory oils. It is a difficult combination for a senior's digestive system to process efficiently. If you notice that your arthritis flares up after eating Mediterranean food or ratatouille, the eggplant is likely the culprit. Replacing eggplant can be quite simple depending on the dish. If you are looking for that meaty, savory texture, portobello mushrooms are a fantastic alternative. They have a rich umami flavor, a hearty texture, and they are immune-boosting powerhouses. They contain compounds that support your immune system rather than confusing it. Zucchini is another great swap. It doesn't have the same meaty density, but it takes on flavors beautifully and is very gentle on the digestion. By swapping eggplant for zucchini or mushrooms, you remove the nightshade trigger completely, giving your body a break. We have covered tomatoes, white potatoes, and eggplants, the big three of the nightshade family. It can feel a bit overwhelming to think that these common foods might be hurting you. But remember, knowledge is power. Once you know the trigger, you can control the pain. However, we aren't done yet. We have one more vegetable to discuss, and this one usually shocks people the most because it is often the poster child for healthy eating. It's not a nightshade, so the problem here is entirely different, but for many seniors, it is just as painful. I am talking about spinach. Yes, you heard that right, spinach. The food Popeye ate to get strong, the leafy green we are constantly told to put in our smoothies and salads. How could spinach possibly be bad for your joints? The answer lies in a compound called oxalates. Spinach is incredibly high in oxalic acid. For a young, robust body, oxalates are usually processed and excreted through the kidneys without much fuss. But as we age, our kidney function naturally declines slightly, and our hydration levels often drop. When oxalates aren't flushed out properly, they bind with calcium in the body. This can lead to two very painful problems that are common in people over 60. First, kidney stones, which are often calcium oxalate stones. But secondly, and more relevant to our topic of joint pain, these oxalate crystals can deposit in the tissues and joints. This can mimic the symptoms of gout, causing sharp, needle-like pain, particularly in the smaller joints like the fingers, toes, or wrists. Some researchers even call it pseudo-gout. If you have been drinking green smoothies every morning, thinking you are doing your body a favor, but you are suffering from aching joints or burning sensations in your hands and feet, you might be overdosing on oxalates. The concentration in raw spinach is very high. It is a classic case of too much of a good thing. While spinach has vitamins, the cost of the oxalates might outweigh the benefits for your specific body chemistry. The fix here is not to stop eating greens. We need those vitamins, but to change the type of greens. Kale, Swiss chard, and collard greens are lower in oxalates than spinach, but they still have some. The safest bet for low oxalate greens is actually lettuce, like romaine or butter lettuce, and arugula. Arugula has a wonderful peppery bite and is very low in oxalates. Also, if you do want to eat spinach, cooking it helps. Boiling or steaming spinach and discarding the water can reduce the oxalate content significantly compared to eating it raw in a salad or smoothie. But if you are in pain right now, I would suggest switching to arugula for a few weeks to see if that sharp joint pain subsides. So where does this leave us? We have looked at tomatoes, white potatoes, eggplant, and spinach. It might feel like your grocery list just got a lot shorter, but I want you to look at this differently. This isn't about restriction, it is about liberation. It is about liberating yourself from pain that you thought was just a natural part of getting old. You see, society tells us that after 60, aches and pains are just the price of admission. They tell us to just take a pill and learn to live with it. I'm here to tell you that is not necessarily true. Your body is an incredible machine, capable of healing and functioning well into your later years, provided you give it the right fuel. If you have been eating these 4 vegetables regularly and hurting, you now have a powerful experiment you can run at home for free. Here is my challenge to you. Try an elimination test. For just 2 weeks, 14 days, remove these 4 vegetables from your diet. Swap the white potatoes for sweet potatoes. Swap the tomatoes for olive oil and garlic sauces. Swap the eggplant for mushrooms and the spinach for arugula. It is only 2 weeks. You can do anything for 2 weeks. Keep a little notebook by your bed. Rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10 when you wake up and when you go to sleep.
I suspect that by day 10, you are going to notice something miraculous. You might find that you can open a jar without wincing. You might find that walking to the mailbox feels lighter. You might realize that the fog in your brain has lifted. And if that happens, you will know that the power to feel better was on your plate all along. Please, if you try this, or if you have already discovered that nightshades or oxalates bother you, let us know in the comments below. Your experience could be the encouragement someone else needs to finally take control of their health. We are a community here, learning and growing together. Remember, aging is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Small changes in your kitchen can lead to massive changes in your quality of life. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you found this helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss our next conversation on living your healthiest, most vibrant life. Here's to living pain-free and loving every minute of it. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.